Thanks everybody for joining us. I'm going to get us started. Just wanted to wait a couple minutes for folks to come on as well. Obviously, you guys know me. I've done these lives for the last few days, really trying to push out some value and content for folks out there, ease some of that uncertainty, in this time of uncertainty. It is, everything new. There's something new every day, something changes every day. And so we're trying to provide some, constant value and just some information for folks so that you can feel good about, what's to come in the coming months. I know there was also in Minnesota, at least, a shelter at home put in place now till April 30th. And so that just gives us even more time to be, I guess, in some cases for some folks, isolated. And that's why I wanted to bring on Nicole today from Will Gather, because, a lot of us could be stuck, I wouldn't say stuck at home, but at home, with our families.
Yeah.
What?
Safe at home is like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Safe at home. Yeah. But, at home with our families or, even isolated, sometimes, older folks are at home and they're alone and, we're not able to visit because that's our most vulnerable, one of our most vulnerable populations at this point. And so, I wanted to, like I said, bring on Nicole. She's an expert in this field, and just have her tell you a little bit about herself and why she started Will Gather. And then we'll kind of get into the nitty gritty of what we can do to help out our seniors. So Nicole, if you want to just introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Yeah, thank you. First, I want to say thank you to Jen for having me on and wanting to do this interview. I think it's such a great way to get the word out about what's happening in our world, but also with our seniors. I started Will Gather based on my background, which is in gerontology, and I worked as a director at a senior living facility for many years. And out of that need, I saw that I really wanted to be able to find quality of life vendors that could come into our facilities and provide life-giving events and activities. And how it operated at the time was that there wasn't a place where we could go online to find all of those resources. So set out to create that, and also having a passion for this population. My grandma lived with us when I was younger, and I grew up with her in our home, and really saw what it was like to grow older and how important it was to have things that we could look forward to. So segued into all of this, and now created Will Gather as an online resource for senior living facilities and activity directors to be able to find all of those vendors to come and bring into their community. So yeah, that's where we're at.
Thank you. Yeah. And I and based on, what Property Houses, we help a lot of folks that are transitioning, into senior living or assisted living, group homes, different things like that, when they're looking to transition that real estate. And so it made me think of Nicole, in that aspect, because she's, providing that information for folks while they're, to keep them engaged while they are in that senior living facility. And so, with all of these guidelines that are put in place, the safe at home, shelter in place, whatever it is, why do you think it's important for, our seniors, especially, to follow that social distancing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's so important that we honor these guidelines, especially with our seniors, because the statistics for them are really disturbing for our older population. They're at most risk. The CDC reports that 8 out of 10 deaths in the US have been with our older population. So it is really up to us to provide that protection for them. We really have to act in solidarity to keep them safe. So they've really tightened restrictions, especially on our long-term care facilities. They are restricting all visitation, except in cases like maybe end of life or compassionate care situations. They are restricting all volunteers, all non-essential healthcare workers. They've canceled all of their group activities, which is such a big part of life in a community like that, and all communal dining. So when we really look at what life looks like for them, they are in their small apartment, maybe large apartment, but they are not able to interact with any of their neighbors and any of their family members, any of their volunteers, any of those activities. And so it really is a time for them where they're having a lot of adjustment. So really honoring that to keep them safe, but knowing that it's going to be a hard time for them.
Okay, so I mean, with all of that being said, obviously all of their social interactions, it sounds like, are really being kind of taken away from them during this time, you know?
Yeah.
So how do you think, you know, what do you think is the best way then for them to, you know, stay connected then while this social isolation is in place?
Yeah, first I want to say that all of the staff in these senior living facilities are doing the most amazing job. They're really kind of the unsung heroes of this whole thing because they are caring for people, following really strict infection control measures, while being the companion and the caregiver and pseudo, friend and family member all at the same time. So shout out to all of them. They're doing amazing. But with that said, that is also a greater burden. And we're finding that how do we stay connected when all of those policies are in place is that senior living facilities are actually really ramping up all of the virtual offerings that they provide. So we did an article on this on our website, willgather.com, under our Be Inspired page, which really highlighted how do we kind of survive during this time and what programs are offered virtually. And so I'll go through a couple of those, but we have limited time, so I'm not going to go through every single one. But different, let's say, vendors that would come into the facility before and provide events in, real time are now, switching over to providing their events virtually so that those residents can access it online. Different art classes are being offered online, different Artsy Smartsy, which artsysmartsyclass.com is selling art kits so that you can, purchase those art kits and then bring them into the resident room, and they're able to do that on their own time. Different museums are offering tours. There are so many different events where you can have puzzles, crossword puzzles, word puzzles, whatever that may be. All of these facilities are really finally tapping into what can we provide in a virtual way and keep people connected and engaged. So while it's such a hard time, I think it's a really exciting time because this is such a catalyst for what really is going to be happening in our future anyways, where we can find what we're looking for when we need it, in terms of depending on how our health is, what resources we have, being able to tap into that wherever we're located and still have access to those programs. So we're updating our guide periodically as we come across even more resources. I today, have 3 more to add to my list.
Is that list on, like, available on your website? Obviously, like we said, there's only so much time that we're doing that, but
yep, it's on our website under our Be Inspired page. Yep, okay. It's kind of a survival guide to those most vulnerable. Okay. So,
I don't mean to interrupt, but I did want to tell people, because we want to keep this engaging as well, and like there's a plethora of information. I also just want to remind folks that, when we're kind of done going through some of the stuff that's available that Nicole's going to talk about, there is going to be some time for questions and answers. I do have my admin that's keeping track of the comments that are coming in, and if there is anything that comes up during this time, please send that in, post it in the comments, and then Katie will be able to send it to me and we'll be able to ask those questions. So just wanted to put that out there because I forgot to say.
Well, that's perfect. So I'm like, there's so much information. So we can make sure that people get what they need to at the end.
And they can reach out to you as well if they have more questions.
Send via email. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Touching on the how do we stay connected with our seniors in a facility, we are also seeing that facilities are being really creative in communicating with family members. They're utilizing technology. They're having appointments using even Calendly for setting up FaceTime and Zoom conversations with family members and, lifelong friends. They're taking pictures of the residents and posting pictures and fun messages on social media. We've even seen some facilities use TikTok, which I don't even know how to use TikTok, but it's great because they're really trying to stay connected and utilizing the technology that we have. There's a really great number of facilities that have an in-house television system, which means they can broadcast their menu for the food online or the schedule for the day or stream a church service. And now they're utilizing that for hosting a music event or doing a trivia with everyone in their room, doing bingo. I mean, all of those things that we have previously done in a group setting, they're really able to do that more on a one-on-one basis and reaching people in their room so that they stay safe. They're receiving letters and cards from loved ones. A lot of the vendors are utilizing Facebook, which is such a great platform to stream those concerts and those live events that they normally would do in person. A lot of family members are coming to the window or the dining room of a facility and visiting through, that window so that they're safe, but that they can see their loved one. We're having facilities that implement a buddy program where they match up a staff person with a resident. They manage that communication with that family member. They make sure their apartment, has all the supplies that they need. They spend time with them. They coordinate those care packages that are being sent from the community. So many other facilities are coordinating with each other and creating a pen pal program, whether it's with a different facility, with local school group or a daycare or a church group, just kind of thinking outside the box and creating that relationship in the ways that they can. We're finding facilities are doing kind of like a hotel when you go and you fill out your room service card for food. They're doing it more of what personal leisure supplies would they need? Do they need a magazine? Do they want to have a word puzzle? What are all those things that they need to be successful in their own apartment? And then those staff are able to provide that for them. So I could go on and on, but I'll stop here.
Well, no, I have a question. I mean, because I think, there's so many of these pieces that are, there's online this, there's Zoom, there's Facebook, there's this, there's that. I mean, typically a lot of the times when, and again, quote, if I'm wrong, please tell me, but, a lot of the times people will go into a senior living facility because there's something going on, maybe where they aren't able to live on their own, like dementia, for instance. Like, what if, what about those people that may not have access to online or, don't necessarily even know who you are, anymore? I mean, what do we do with that population that perhaps doesn't have access, to that type of communication and I mean, just like, what do we do with that?
That's such a good question. I think for those residents that have dementia, they are in a care home for a really good reason. And that's because they need that care and they need that support to live really safely. And so the family member has already really entrusted that facility to care for them. And when we say care, we mean all of it, physical, social, spiritual, mental. We have to have that comprehensive care. And so the best part about that is you also have staff members in place that can set you up to connect with your loved one. So part of that is really touching base with them and having them use technology, right? Because it's all we have right now, to whether it's hold the phone up so that they can hear your voice, trying to make contact in any way going to a facility, holding up a poster, being there, they might not recognize that it's you, but they will recognize that it's a human that's trying to make that connection. Music is another way that really reaches to those with dementia. Singing outside a window, singing on the phone. I spend time, I haven't been able to recently, but every week I spend time with a woman that has dementia. And I love spending time with her. And the majority of our time is spent listening to music and singing together, because it is a way that we can engage with each other, because it taps into her long-term memory. So she can remember those lyrics to those songs and she can sing. And we're able to find that connection. The Alzheimer's Association of Minnesota has such valuable resources on how to stay connected. Some of those I just mentioned, but also really, I think it's as us as a caregiver for a loved one that's in the facility, it gives us more peace of mind knowing that we can maybe hear their voice or that we can see our loved one. And so having the staff facilitate that connection in whichever way that they can. And then just trusting that they're in really good hands, but also having that oversight. And because it is such a hard time, you know, we have so many good resources like the Alzheimer's Association that can offer, excuse me, that support for those family members. And they have a 1-800 number that you can call on their website. And if you're just really struggling with not being able to make that physical connection right now, they can walk you through kind of navigating that, but knowing that really some of those tips can really help, but then also the facility can just give you that peace of mind that they really are well cared for.
Okay, so then that makes me think of something else now. Like we've been talking about, you know, senior care facilities and people, and there's people there to be with them and they can help engage them. But I mean, what about, you know, those seniors that are isolated, you know, at home right now, whether they're with a partner or with a loved one or alone? Like how do we engage those people that are at home?
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge, not only for our seniors right now, but like for people that are living alone in general, but specifically for our seniors, the need for human connection is so strong. So many studies have been done with isolation and how it creates such feelings of loneliness. And especially with aging, it can lead to just poor health and decline. So we really, as an industry, tap into fighting that isolation. So we put things in place in a facility, and you know, my brain goes to how do we take that and carry it into those seniors that are isolated at home. And it's such a hard time right now for all of us. So what can we do about it? My background in therapeutic recreation, I go to a place of thinking about that older person that I love and care about. What did they love and care about? So what was their leisure? What gives them joy? I feel like that's such a good place to start, because if we start there, then we can think of ways to connect with them, draw that out in them, and then think about what do they need to continue that? What supplies can I provide? What encouragement can I provide? So that's just a helpful way to start thinking about that loved one in your life that maybe is living alone. Obviously, the first thing that we think about is, do they have what they need? Food, shelter, all of those things that are basic human needs. So really tapping into that. Do they have services set up like contactless grocery and different means so that they can maintain a healthy life? I think we get overwhelmed with thinking about what is that grand gesture. And it really is to not underestimate the the ability to make an impact with a small gesture and make a difference in the world. I think so many times we want to have it be this big ordeal, and really it is the simplest hello and a phone call that are the most special to our seniors. Just they're not invisible, and they are such a part of our history and our life, and making them feel seen and letting them know that we're thinking about them. So it really is a time right now where we're all growing our communication skills, because we have to make the call or we have to send the letter and we have to reach out in different ways that maybe we didn't do before. There, is also, if there is a need for more care for your loved one, there are so many great home care agencies. LifeSpark comes to mind for me here in the Twin Cities, and they provide such wonderful care and all levels of care, whether it's, high medical needs or even just companionship. So reaching out if you feel like your loved one just needs a little more support at home. And if for people that are maybe they're like, I don't have a loved one, but I'd really love to connect with a senior. Ask a friend in your life if they have anyone that they could really use that connection, or a coworker, tapping into your local senior center or church, your local nursing home or assisted living. There are so many people out there that would love that engagement. So
yeah, and on that side of things, I posted something yesterday about that sandwich generation, and that was kind of part of what you guys grew up with. Your grandma lived there, your mom and dad were caring for, the 4 kids, and then also caring for grandma. So, it's important that those caregivers are also taken care of as well, because if they don't take care of themselves, then it's going to be really hard to take care of everyone else. And so, do you have any suggestions or thoughts on maybe self-care, or, for those people that maybe are being asked a lot right now, since we all are, at home and everybody is around us all the time?
Right. I do. I think I love Brene Brown and Glennon Doyle, and hearing some of the insight that they have right now. And it applies to caregiving in such a big way, because we have to really focus on having empathy for ourselves, because right now I'm sure caregivers are feeling really overwhelmed and sad that they cannot be that person for their loved one. So giving yourself permission to have empathy for yourself and to start that healing process. And I think too, we're experiencing that collective grief. And so not be hard on yourself, be tender on yourself. Know that you are doing the best you can in the circumstances that you have. There's different support groups that are available, caregiver support groups, whether it be in person or online. Online's probably what you're going to be finding right now as a benefit. And then it's kind of like you mentioned, you have to focus on your own self-care. If we do not take care of ourselves first, we are not able to take care of others well. It's like that whole analogy, not analogy, but like when you're flying, none of us are right now, but when you're flying, you have to put on your own oxygen mask first before you put on anyone else's. And so that is so true in caregiving, especially. You have to take care of your own needs and make sure that you're really healthy mentally and physically before you can care for other people. And again, I go into tap into what you love and what your leisure is, and then do that and take time to do all of those things that fill you up so that you can give back to others. When we do come to the time where you're able to visit your loved one again, share the burden, bring a friend with you, share the experience. I think it'll help also when you want to talk about what your life is like or what you're going through to be able to share that experience with someone that you care about. They have an understanding of what's going on in your life. And I encourage everyone else, if you know someone that is a caregiver, just encourage them, let them know that they are not alone, that you hear them, that you are listening to them, that you support them. Oftentimes they're caring so much for everyone else and making sure that those needs are met for that person while neglecting their own. So as a loved one of a caregiver, really thinking about what could you do for that caregiver? Could you do their groceries one day? Could you help them clean their house or whatever that is to lessen their burden for that time so that they can really care for their senior loved one? So
That's a great idea.
it's hard, but it's a community and we're all in this together. So
I do have a question from somebody watching. It's actually a legit concern.
okay.
Apparently somebody has a rebel grandma or grandpa
Yes.
or parent that, isn't really following the stay-at-home order. And so for those that are feeling that isolated, right? Like they need to get out, they need to do things. I mean, for me, yeah, I'm gonna admit too, it's tough for me to be here all the time. So for that rebel, older population, what kind of advice would you have for someone who's just really struggling, with the stay-at-home order?
Yeah, that is hard and tricky. I kind of have two thoughts about it. One is talking with that loved one and trying to understand why they're not wanting to follow these precautions, and just asking the question and seeing kind of what is motivating them. Because if it's, I can't get groceries, so I'm going to the grocery store, how do we mitigate that? And then how do we set them up for success and get those groceries to them? That's just an example.
Sure.
The other piece of it, while I know we really, really want to, have people be safe and healthy, and we do our best with that, we also have to remember that these are, grown adults that have lived really full, productive lives and have had amazing careers and professions, and they're smart. And while it's hard for us because we want to take care of them and protect them, we also have to be careful about not babying them and really honoring and respecting their opinion and age and how they live their life, whether or not we agree with it. And it is hard because we are under that call to action right now to do that. So
Right.
All that to say is that we can do the best we can, but even in any situation, it's really hard to control other people. And it works.
It is.
It is.
Myself sometimes.
Right? My kids or whatever. And so we do the best we can and communicate the most effectively and share with them the statistics, providing them with resources, finding out why they are not listening. And then at the end of the day, they've lived really beautiful lives. So
right. So, we've gone over a lot of these resources. And I know you wanted to do something special today for the folks, that joined us on this webinar. So, why don't you, Katie, if you could post that link in the comments right now, that would be really great. Nicole has a special gift that she would like to have for everyone, since there are so many resources that we talked about. And obviously there's a lot more, things that folks can do to keep your seniors engaged. Why don't you tell them what you want to do, Nicole?
Yeah, so we, have our resource that we provide those quality of life vendors and events. And we want to be able to give people access to that for a year. So membership, we specifically have a really robust resource in Minnesota. it is a national platform and we're just continuing to grow. So yes, go to that landing page that you've created and we can get people set up with that. There's so many resources. I'm looking at all of them that we didn't even touch on. So would love to be able to get that in people's hands also. For people that are listening and like, I really want to connect. There are just two I wanted to touch on. Lovefortheelderly.org. They're a nonprofit that helps elderly and they combat social isolation with love and through delivering handwritten letters. So you can contribute by writing letters or donating your resources to them. Another one, there's a program out of the West Coast, they're growing, that has a telephone reassurance program, and they train volunteers to provide friendly check-in calls with elderly and call on a regular basis. So people that, like we were talking about, in their home and are totally isolated, they are able to touch base with them and fight that isolation. So really, really good organizations, nonprofit. So
awesome. So we're going to have that link posted in the comments. Nicole will also be posting it, on her site and her social media. I'll be doing it on my social media too. That'll have the coupon code there for you to get the free membership for the year. I want to thank you, Nicole, for joining me. Do you have any last words before we sign off?
I do. This is not a comprehensive list by any means.
Sure.
It's really just a place to start. I'm really hoping that it can be a catalyst to start thinking of new ways to connect with your loved one or future loved one, future senior in your life that you're going to adopt. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks guys. I also wanted to say on Thursday, I'm going to kind of continue on like the senior focus for the week. On Thursday, I'm going to be interviewing 2 probate and estate planning attorneys that I've done a lot of kind of referrals back and forth and conversations and just shared a lot since we do a lot of, we help folks in transition of probate who have inherited homes through probate. I think this is also a really good time for us to start thinking perhaps about estate planning and those medical directives and end of life directives, since I know there's been a lot of stories, unfortunately, that I've heard of folks who have not been able to be around their loved one at their end of life, and there was no healthcare directive put in place. All of those kinds of things, right now with us having to be isolated is something that maybe perhaps,